So before we get started and get into the full presentation, basically NFTs, Jonathan, seem to be kind of the buzzword of the day. And if there are two things from the 21st century I don't understand, one is Love Island and one is NFTs. And I'm hoping today you're going to be able to kind of talk us through the NFT process and what exactly they are.
Yeah, I can. It's on the one hand quite simple, but if you dig into it, it appears more complex than it probably is. So hopefully we can demystify it a bit.
Jolly good. Right. Well, let's get the presentation up and running, and we'll see where we get to. So, Jonathan, you should be able to see my screen now.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Right. So let's get into it. Right, for those of you who don't know, and for those of you that haven't joined any of our webinars before with Jonathan and myself, first of all, shame on you, because there's some really good ones that we've done over the past couple of years since COVID started. But my name's Alastair Meiklejon. I'm the Senior Valuer and Business Development Executive at Dallas, and I'm with my colleague, Jonathan Horwich, who is the Modern and Contemporary Art Specialist. And as I said, thank you ever so much for all of you for coming along today. So, Jonathan, let's kick off with the big question, really, because it's the one. I was at the NFT gallery the other day for our fantastic evening that we had there on Dover Street, and that was a lot of fun. But still, I walked away and I was thinking, okay, there are so many questions that have been asked about this whole thing. What is an NFT? Let's put it in a nutshell.
It's a token, a securely held token. So if you or I buy a picture in a gallery, the gallery knows where we live and send us a receipt and so on. But if you buy an NFT, then it's stored on what's called blockchain, which may be familiar to others, but it's an accessible, publicly accessible record of who owns what. So you buy your NFT, which gives you a token with a coded number, perhaps a bit like a barcode, but an individual one. And the blockchain will record you as the owner, as the sole beneficiary of this piece for, well, theoretically forever and ever, amen. So there's an element of security, if you like, that perhaps you wouldn't get with buying art generally. There are, of course, like all things online, essences of security and so on, which we'll get onto. But essentially, the blockchain records you as the owner, and everybody knows that, and you can have a code name or a nickname, but you're secure in the knowledge that it's yours. And it's not interchangeable, non-fungible, basically, fungible being something that could be copied. So it's a non-copyable token.
Okay. Now, so does that basically mean, Jonathan, that the artwork involved in them is almost inconsequential?
It's debatable. There's so much artwork out there, and indeed it's expanding beyond simply just art. It already has. So the token could be a piece of art. It could be a piece of art that's static. It could be a piece of art that moves. You would have noticed in the NFT gallery in Dover Street that there are static elements there and things that move, not very much, but there's all sorts of things there. I don't know whether that answers your question or not, but
no, I mean, I've been bizarrely looking at a new car, and it comes with its own NFT, and completely as baffled about that and what you could ever do with an NFT of an Alfa Romeo. I really don't know, but
well, it's yours to do with as you will. You could try to sell it. I don't know how successful you could be. I think the assumption is that there is a value to all NFTs, but a little bit like regular art, it depends on who wants to buy it and why would they want it. And probably nobody would want an NFT of your car. They probably want one of their own car.
So it's almost like a bonus kind of thing. It just kind of wraps it all up.
It can be, but then again, it's a unique token which has a value. And if it's a token of either an image or something that people really want, they're now producing NFT copies of movies. So Lord of the Rings is being re-released with individual NFTs. So the basic movie, but you can buy an NFT of a movie which is unique. So in other words, it's like the regular movie, but there's 10 minutes of extra footage on there, which is unique to that NFT and to you if you own it.
I'm not sure the Lord of the Rings needs to be any longer, but I get your point.
I'm guessing that no one will actually watch it. It's the assumption is they'll just watch the extra bit that they've bought with their NFT. It really is sort of expanding, you know, even since you and I last spoke about it, which is probably only a matter of months ago. It's growing like topsy.
It's changing. So we've spoken briefly about the NFT gallery, which we've had a couple of fantastically good fun evenings at, where the people that are running the show there put on some really, really good kind of images and shows. But how and where can you buy and sell? I think that's the other thing, selling NFTs. How does it work, Jonathan?
It's getting to be a little bit like buying and selling art. So you could go to Christie's or Sotheby's to buy. In fact, we'll see a little bit later on in the presentation an opportunity which arose recently. So if you want to go mainstream, you can go to Sotheby's or Christie's. Then there's a number of portals. One of the best known one is one called OpenSea, SEA, as in ocean waves. And you can, the good thing about them is you can buy and you can sell. And also, if you want to, you could make your own NFTs. There's a cost in terms of time and money in doing that. But they have quite a sort of broad spectrum of available options on their site.
Okay. Now, in terms of the NFTs themselves, Jonathan, I'm just going to come back to something on this. Bear with me 2 seconds. So, what are the benefits and the risks of the NFTs themselves?
The benefits, we could look at the benefits from both sides. I think you could, in fact, there may be more than one side to NFTs. So the benefits of buying an NFT is, as we spoke of earlier, that your purchase is securely noted on the blockchain. So you are safe in the knowledge that it's yours. That there are issues of security, so people could hack your wallet and therefore they could pretend to be you. And that can happen in banking and other elements. So that's something to watch out for. The benefits are that you could begin to collect many of them. So you could choose the areas you're interested in. You could look out for what are called drops, which are new NFTs which come onto the market. And they are sort of first time opportunities, as it were. So a drop is something that's brand new, and it could be unique, or indeed they produce them in editions. I don't know how if anybody watching or listening has ever collected limited edition prints, but if they have, then you would understand an edition could be an image of which there are, let's say, 100. They're all the same, but you have maybe a number 1 or number 5. So the options are multiple. Benefits are that you've got something which is yours. And the risks are just keeping it safe. Prices, well, we're going to talk about that a bit later on, but the benefits and risks, there's lots to choose from. And the risks are perhaps all the normal risks that would be associated with any sort of transaction online.
Okay. Now, in terms of, we'll come on to this again a little bit later when we're talking about some more specific items, but in terms of obviously what we do and what you do primarily, Jonathan, is value art. So how do we go about valuing an NFT?
Yeah, it's a very good question. I've been thinking about this over and over in many ways, that art is valued sometimes as part of people's estates, and I guess NFTs would be the same. You could argue that you could value an NFT quite accurately, because rather like stocks and shares, it's possible to keep track of the market on a daily basis. So there are various websites which are out there where you can track recent sales. So you could see what something similar to yours sold for recently. So if we were to value it purely on a commercial basis, in other words, what's it worth today or yesterday, then that's possible to do. It may be more tricky to work out how you would value it for insurance, for instance. Where would you set that level? Because it could fluctuate day to day.
Is it almost like valuing a share option?
Yes, I think it is.
Yeah, you're valuing a piece of gold, let's say, which could fluctuate massively overnight.
Yeah, I think that's a very good suggestion. Yes, something like gold or silver or a commodity. In fact, I read the other day that the Fed are considering bringing NFTs into their remit. In other words, to class it as an asset, but by virtue of taxation and also regulation. So I think that's probably a very good way of looking at it. It's a stock it's not a share in something, it is a thing. But I don't know how, if people insure stocks and shares. Maybe they don't. They just accept that, they are what they are and they're worth what they're worth.
But I suppose in some ways, and has been proven, NFTs can be stolen, can't they?
Well, yes. What's actually stolen is your identity immediately.
Right.
So it's your identity that's stolen by the hacker, and NFTs and your access to the blockchain is securely in your wallet. But if someone can gain access to that, then they pretend to be you. So the blockchain accepts that it's you because you've got the passwords and therefore allows you to sell them. But because there's no, it's the Wild West, there's no regulation. Once you've sold them, then it's almost impossible to get that money back. Some of the hosts like OpenSea and the agents you can go through have, rather like banks sometimes do in fraud, they've either got the piece back or compensated the people. That's where it is. So it's identity theft that's the threat, which obviously then means that you lose the NFTs and the money. The other thing to be aware of is if you're buying and selling, if you send the money by mistake to someone else, let's say you've just what would you be doing? You sold or buying. Let's say you're buying and you accidentally send the money to someone else, you're up a gum tree. There's nowhere to go. There's no FSA. There's no financial ombudsman.
That was going to lead me on to the next question about regulation in the market, because I'm going to put this in a similar term. I had some Bitcoin a little while ago and my account got hacked. All went and I couldn't do anything about it. And I'm presuming it's a similar kind of situation, John.
Yeah, it's the same. You often, everybody I've spoken to has had an experience whereby, just like yours, their wallet has been hacked and they've lost, but they've not lost everything. I don't quite know why or how that is. It may be simply timing, but equally, you'd have thought those people would say, I'm never going near NFTs or crypto again, but they all say it's just part of the process. One young man I spoke to had even called the police, who, despite what you might think, were incredibly helpful and understanding and helped him to try and sort of follow the trail.
Gosh, is there still such thing as action fraud with the police? Is that who would?
Yeah, I mean, I was very surprised, and so was he. He was expecting them to laugh or at least to not take him seriously, but they did. So maybe the good thing is that it's a bit of it's a bit like the Wild West in a way, but just to make the point that the main reason why people were less bothered about losing or being hacked was that they had already made money. So they felt that they were already ahead in a way. Yes, they had lost, I don't know, £2,000, let's say, on an NFT that was hacked, but they'd made another 10,000 on something that hadn't. So it's swings and roundabouts. So they were. Yeah, which is not dissimilar to stocks and shares, is it really? People may say, well, I did invest in so and so, I lost all my money, but I did really well out of Y or A or B or something. So there's a degree of philosophy at the minute that people are, taking the rough with the smooth.
So in terms of where we are at with NFTs at the moment, it's still a very new thing, and I still think a lot of people, probably like myself, we don't fully understand the whole kind of process with NFTs. Are they going to become more mainstream? Are people going to be using them as everyday currency? How do you think this is going to work, Jonathan?
I think that the more the greater the number of transactions in cryptocurrency, then I should think it will follow quite naturally that NFTs will form a greater part of normal trading, if you know what I mean. So I think it will, if it were regulated, I don't know. I think that people would feel better about it. I think a bit of regulation, inevitably,
How would you regulate it? I think that's the only thing that I would say. How would you regulate the value of a piece of art or a piece of stock?
You couldn't regulate the value, but you could regulate the way that they're bought and sold and recorded. Okay. So I don't know. I mean, the suggestion here in this country also is that the inland revenue are already aware of transactions, NFT sales and purchases in cryptocurrency, and they're beginning to catch on to, and indeed, I think probably are quite ahead of the game, and are having discussions with the various FCA and other bodies to try and regulate the market. So you'd have to have a license as a seller of NFTs. At the minute you don't. You and I could open up tomorrow, and you'd have to offer some sort of fail-safe or option to help people out if they had lost them. So there's got a long way to go on that.
So next question, Jonathan, when you buy an NFT, what is it you actually get? I'm presuming you don't get a nice little red box and you open it up and there's an image, or there's a, I don't know, a little hard drive or something like that. Is it just the knowledge that you own this piece?
You get the token. So you get, I mean, it's a bit like a barcode. So you get the unique access code, and as we've said before, the fact that it's recorded as your property on blockchain. You don't, like buying a piece of art. If you bought a Picasso, well, then you've got the picture, but you don't own the copyright. If you buy a Van Gogh, you've got the picture, but you don't own the copyright. You can't reproduce it or earn any money from it. And you can print the image off your computer if you want to, but so can everybody else. You're not the only one that could do that.
So what benefit does owning the individual NFT of let's say a portrait give you? What can you do that somebody else can't?
Own it. You can own the token. That's the only thing you can do with it. You can own the token, and you could keep it or sell it or give it away, I guess. Okay. That's what it offers you. You could, yes, you can print it, but so can everybody else. You can't reproduce it and make money from it. It just is in your pocket, as it were. So it doesn't do an awful lot for you, but you obviously can look at it if you want to, but that isn't necessarily something only you can do.
So if you go and decide, you know what, this NFT market isn't for me anymore, I'm going to get rid of all of my NFTs. What happens when you sell them then? I'm presuming, I mean, there are such things as auction for NFTs and other items like that, which we'll probably look at a little bit later.
Yeah, there are auctions. You could go, depending on what you've got. There are mainstream auctions, Christie Sotheby's and so on. You can go into any one of the NFT websites and offer it through them. It's relatively easy to do.
And then I'm presuming you get paid in, is it Ethereum or Bitcoin or something like that?
Yes, you probably would. You'd then have to exchange that for sterling if you didn't keep any of the recognized currencies. But if you're going to buy an NFT, I think you have to fully embraced cryptocurrency. I don't think there's any point in doing it if you're nervous about cryptocurrency. I think that's, I've been thinking about that. If you want to do it in pounds and dollars, then probably maybe it's just not for you at the minute.
Okay.
But you could sell and probably buy through the mainstream auction houses using. I noticed viewing a sale the other day that some lots are marked owner will accept Ethereum, some are not. So you can pick and choose, if you like, what you're paid in as a vendor.
And I'm sure that if you go through one of the big boys when you're purchasing something like this, they would advise you on how the best route would be to purchase it in the safest way.
Yes, I mean, I think that's a very good point, that if you're someone who has bought through mainstream Christie Sotheby's or others, then you should feel reasonably assured, if you like, of a smooth passage, if you like, if you're buying or selling. Just going back to what I said before, that the trick is to hold on to what you've got. That's where the threat really comes, is people stealing your identity. So yeah, I think there is, when you come to sell, one of the things which it's not crystal clear, but if you take an established NFT such as Bored Apes, we'll perhaps look at some later on, but there's 10,000 of them. The people who made them are the people who I think it's Open Sea or Yacht Club. There's all sorts of slightly weird names, but every time a Bored Ape NFT is sold, then 10% goes back to the makers. So it's a bit like,
a really interesting point. It's like artist resale rights.
It's exactly like artist resale rights, but it's not an individual artist that's getting this money. It is the maker of this NFT. So it's continuous revenue. So there are 10,000 of them. They probably change hands quite often. So the owners of Bored Ape have a significant asset in terms of the commission that they earn every time one is sold. Forever and ever and ever, amen. It will continue. It's not like copyright, it doesn't end. And artist resale right lasts for 75 years after the artist had died. This goes on forever.
I'm presuming the people that created them and the artists kind of wrote that into the rule book at the start.
Yes, yes and no. Some did, some didn't. But now it's industry standard, and yes, they do. And those that didn't realised that their mistake and did.
So let's just kind of just put this in context here. So let's say Bored Apes, 10,000 NFTs that they've created. What do they sell for? Probably over 10 grand each, maybe.
No, in some cases up to $600,000 or $700,000. Yeah, but
they are making 10% each time there is a transaction upon any.
Yes, it's a 10% kickback to them. You know, so it's well worth owning them, because if you multiply 10,000 by the number that are exchanged, it's quite an asset. So that's an asset that they theoretically could sell on, isn't it? It's like, I don't know, owning a block of flats, if you like, and you're getting continuous rental. You still own the flats. You could sell the flats and keep some interest in them somehow. There's all sorts of things. So it's a very
it's like a royalty stream if you wrote a song.
Yes,
continually get that Christmas check from the PRS.
Yeah, but forever, until the end of time. It doesn't end.
Okay, that's interesting. Now, okay, so the point is, now, can anyone make an NFT? So if I decided, you know, okay, well, I want some of this 600,000-700,000 pound per NFT action, how would I go about it?
You go onto OpenSea and you can select. I think you'd need to have a bit of. I don't think you necessarily have to be artistic, but you can make an NFT. You can even, rather wonderfully, I guess many people might be familiar with cheaper rate electricity at night. What do they call it? you do your washing overnight rather than during the day, and you pay less for the electricity. You can do that with NFTs. So in other words, if you choose to make your NFTs between 11 o'clock and 4 in the morning, it'll cost you less than if you do it during the day.
Gosh, I'm presuming that's not because there's more electricity used, or is that the case?
Yes, that's the case, and so that you can do it on the cheap by doing them at night. And the biggest sort of provider of this facility, and it's provided by lots and lots of little PCs whirring away, is Kazakhstan.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I wasn't expecting that.
No, I don't think anybody is. I mean, it's not very e-friendly at all. That's you've got whole hangars full of personal computers whirring away as people all around the world are making NFTs, and Kazakhstan is the biggest provider of that facility in the world.
Well, that's a new one. That's I won't forget that one in a hurry.
No.
So the process of actually making these NFTs, so is it literally just? I mean, do you have an image and then it's designed for you, and then it's? I mean, how does it work?
Yeah, well, I suppose I really ought to make one and find out, but it's a bit like if you go online to you could do your own website.
Yeah.
So there are sort of ways to start. There's tool. You can get the tools to do the job, but I think you have to do a lot of the work yourself.
So,
but there is rather depressingly a 5-year-old who has managed to make a small fortune making NFTs. So if a 5-year-old can do it, it must be possible.
Yes, that's quite depressing. Well, some sites are still going, okay, so we do this and we do this, but yeah, still haven't got it. But so yeah, that kind of goes to show then. Now, we'll talk about what's new and what's hot and what's not in NFTs. I'm just wondering if we've got some of these. So yeah, let's have a look at these, because I think this kind of gives an idea about what's going on in the world of. And we discussed briefly some of the Bored Ape Yacht Club. I should say that right there.
Yeah.
So some of these, and so these have got numbers like number 1,598. One presumes, Jonathan, that they've actually made that many then.
There are 10,000 of them. So that hashtag number is its number between 1 and 10,000. So and each some of them are actually quite similar, but they have minor differences. And if you can see here, Yuga Labs are the owners, if you like. So they're the people who will get the 10% every time something is sold. And Bored Ape Yacht Club is the NFT series. And what we're looking at here is, I think there's 7 pieces here, aren't there?
So we've got four apes, and then two different ones.
Yeah. So so this is an online sale at Sotheby's, which took place last week in New York, and there's enough money there. So you look at the estimates underneath in dollars. So the first one, 1,598, estimate 125 to 190 dollars, and in that case, if you were the buyer, you'd be paying buyer's premium on top. So you're probably adding about roughly 20% on top for your final bill.
So you're probably getting to about $250,000 for that.
Yeah. And the initial purchase price of this series was somewhere in the region of $10,000 to $30,000 a pop. So yeah, exactly. They're way beyond the original purchase price. And so those people who got in early, it accounts for why the drops or the new editions or new openings or new NFTs are so popular, because you're getting in on at the beginning of something. These have been around for some time. NFTs broke onto the market in 2014. Bored Ape been around for about probably 2 years. I mean, that's old masters almost in terms of NFTs.
I can tell by the laurel wreath.
Yeah, what's interesting about this particular group here is how much of it or how little of it sold.
Really? Is
Yeah,
that
what you're looking,
a
what you're
market
looking
or?
at is a sort of just a summary of the page, which
Hmm,
I scanned and sent to the office. They are listed individually, but out of all of them, only one actually sold.
that's interesting. So are we seeing a downturn, Jonathan? Is this what you're
I
telling us?
well, we're seeing something which, maybe that you get in art, that if for example there are many places to buy NFTs, as we've been talking about, the key element here is that the price of NFTs or the success of sales of NFTs or purchases is linked directly to cryptocurrency. So no matter what you want to do, or whether you want to buy or sell on a daily basis, the price that you achieve or will have to pay is affected by the price of crypto. Usually Ethereum is the one that's most commonly used for NFTs. I'm not sure why that is, but it is. It's just a bit more manageable. I think Ethereum is what it's about £3,000 per Ethereum. So it's not as much as Bitcoin, which is a much bigger ratio.
I think it's
So
always been that way for some reason. Yeah, it's always been that way. It's a strange one. Ethereum seems to have been the thing that's been tied to it. But so do we think then, Jonathan, that these estimates that were being flouted about were, were just too much, and people are thinking, you know what, at the moment, the way things are going, we've got, I hate to say the financial crisis, because ultimately if you're spending £115,000 plus on a series of numbers on a token, you're probably not worried about your heating bills. But are we thinking that people are actually looking at these going, well, is this the right time to be buying them?
I think that's possible. I think it's quite complicated to explain. Um, Blockchain will record who owns these. There's a lot of pressure as owners of not just Bored Ape Yacht Club series, but other NFTs. There's a lot of pressure to not sell.
Hmm.
If you have 10, let's say there are 10,000 of these, and but there aren't 10,000 people. There probably is a far smaller number of people who own quite a significant number. So imagine if you and I and everybody else who's watching us and listening this evening are NFT owners. We're all aware of each other. Even if you've got a nickname on the blockchain, it doesn't take long for people to work out who you are. So there's quite a lot of elbowing to say, you're not going to sell, are you? Are you, Alastair? And you say, oh, well, I was thinking about it. And I say, well, that's not very helpful, because if you sell all your Bored Apes, then that devalues mine.
I think it's the age-old thing with cryptocurrency, where people are trying to persuade people to hold when everything
Yeah,
is falling.
yeah, yeah.
And
So
I think
it's not just, yes, it must be a reflection of a slight weakness in the market, but it could also just as easily be someone, paying someone back for deciding to sell something. Say, well, I'm not going to bid then. And indeed, only just in the early spring, there was an auction of a collection. This is wonderful, isn't it? In the same way that we are being excited by Paul Allen's collection coming up in New York last week, that there was 107, a weird number, of these all Bored Apes that belong to one person. The person was recorded with a code name on blockchain, but most people who were involved knew who he was. And he was putting the whole group up as one lot, which I think does make you rather vulnerable. And there was a VIP launch on the evening of the sale, and even just a few minutes before the sale took place, it was pulled. So they had the after party and the VIP reception, but the auction itself never took place, because the pressure on the owner to sell was probably very significant. And in the end, he just pulled, and they'll either come back individually or not at all. So it's a different world to. It really is quite
I was going to say, I'm
complicated.
so pleased you're talking about that in the same breath as the Paul Allen sale. It's
Well,
it's quite bizarre, really.
it is and it isn't it? Because the theory was that this would attract a lot of attention, this group of NFTs, which it did, but not it didn't work out very well. It wasn't the right sort of attention. Instead of pulling people towards buying this, and indeed you'd have to spend a lot of money, it was millions of dollars, bear in mind, for that many. It perhaps proved it's not the way that people buy these.
No, it's a good explanation, Jonathan. That's
yeah. And you can see out of this that the one that did sell in that group is probably, it doesn't look like something that's, it's a new drop, or it's something new rather than old.
Which one was the one that sold? Was it one of these?
Well, we don't, unfortunately, we don't see an image. It's yeah.
Okay, but these were
DK,
kind of the way in which they were sold was kind of like a timed auction as well, wasn't it?
Yes, it's a straightforward online auction, so a timed auction, yeah.
So, Jonathan, we're coming towards the end here, and I can see there are a couple of questions, and we'll get to them in 2 seconds. But Jonathan, you've done an article in the past about the NFTs that I would, kind of ask people if they have any more questions to refer to that, because there's a lot of statistics in the article, and it does talk about them in a little bit more detail. And also, Jonathan and I did an NFT webinar in a similar way to this, but talked about the process a little bit more, and also talked about what it is, because I still think, in a lot of cases, some of you might not have a full idea about how it works and what it does. So please do check them out. So just to give you a quick background into Dare Dallas, I'm sure you all know us, and I can see quite a lot of names on the guest list today that we've dealt with quite a lot in the past as well. As you'll know, back in 2016, Rachel started the firm with over 25 years experience. So we have over 20 now, specialists who work in very specific fields, including Jonathan and myself, from fine art to street art, watches to jewelry, antiques, handbags, cars, you name it, we'll put a price on it. I think that's the accurate way of looking at it. So in terms of, let's move on to the next screen. So fully independent, we don't work for any auction house. We have no conflict of interest. We don't ask your clients to sell things to us. £5 million worth of professional indemnity insurance. And this is a really, really, really important fact. If you are looking at having any valuation work done, you need to make sure that they have the correct insurance to cover if something should go wrong. Our secure database, and obviously talking to Jonathan about NFTs and making sure that all of your data and all of these items aren't at risk. If you stored them within our database, you could be fairly sure that nobody is going to steal your NFT. So it's exactly the same with any data that we have on you. We're FSQS registered, we're a Spears 500 company, and we're happy to give free quotations with lots of different ways of actually doing these things. And if you've ever heard Rachel talk about it, we talk about it quite a lot, and we always do say, let us talk to the client, let us talk to you, we'll work out what the best option is. And we don't like surprises. We like to know what's going to happen when one of our valuers go in there and say, okay, we need to get some items on paper, and that's the way to do it. Happy to get on a call with you and discuss what we can offer and go from there. So do check out our website. We spent lots of money over the last 18 months having it rejigged, and there's some fantastic articles on there, including ones on NFTs, webinars. And if you did catch any of the webinars over the lockdown period, many of them with Jonathan, many of them with me, with various different states of hair and beard and moustache and whatever you can name it, which I'm sure everyone went through during those couple of years. Please do check them out. There's some really interesting ones on there. So, as we've been discussing, my name's Alastair Meiklejon. Those are my details there. Jonathan's with me today. Now, I'm just going to stop sharing this because there is a question that's come up. And if there are any further questions, please do jump in. So, the question that's come up from Duncan here is, other than creating them buy and sell, is there any useful commercial purpose NFTs can be used for?
I'd imagine that if you have a significant number of NFTs, they would have a value, and a value to loan basis. So perhaps like any collection of art or antiques, you could perhaps leverage that collection to either make further acquisitions, as often happens with art, or a loan for other purposes. So you could use them in that way.
So almost using them almost as collateral as like a
collateral.
property.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they could use this collateral. I mean, I think as time goes on, that will be, there are specialist firms in the US who will insure them. We haven't talked about insurance, but I mean, there is, so it's insurable. So I think they could provide collateral as time goes on and they get more and more established.
Fascinating. Jonathan, I think we've kind of come to the end of the talk today on NFTs, and I just want to say thank you ever so much for joining us today, and thank you to you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us for our webinar. It's always nice to see so many familiar names, if not faces, on our call, so thank you ever so much. Please do keep an eye out. If you're not registered with us for our mailing list, please do get in touch and get on the mailing list, and keep an eye out for our webinars and our articles. We try and do an article every week, and the articles obviously are there for you to use as brokers and insurers, to go out and show your clients why they need to have valuations done. Now, if you do need to get in touch with us, please do, either myself, obviously, or the office, and we'll be happy to have a chat with you about what we can offer for you as clients, and where we go from there. So once again, Jonathan, thank you ever so much.
My pleasure.
And ladies and gentlemen, thank you, and hopefully we'll speak to you all soon. Take care. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.